Hey guys, and a noisy good morning to you. So, today we are going to talk about the damn it moment in React. So let's get into it. Now what do I mean by the damn moment or the fuck it moment? This is bad moment. That perfect moment. That scary moment that everybody who's been doing any type of React development for any period of time is afraid of. You know which one it is? It's that magical moment when you're on a page that you've been working on for some while. It's been growing ever so slightly, steadily for a long time. And then you start noticing something. You click an element, and it takes a full second for the modal to be shown, for the select state to be initialized, for things to interact whatsoever. There's this slight delay. And for the juniors out there, you may not think that this is such a big problem, but when you've been doing this for a little while, your first instinct you kind of grab your heart and go, is this the day? Is this the day when we finally reach that magical threshold when our Redux state has grown to such a size that it's actually affecting our rendering performance? I had that moment yesterday. So we were interacting and I was kind of just using the interface, and we were basically just working. And at one point in my story, I was clicking around and I noticed something. I noticed that from a specific, in certain situations, like once or twice, depending on where I was in the application, I actually had severe delays in typing speed. I had severe delays in clicking elements and having things interact and all that good stuff. And it was actually really noticeable. The worst case scenario was a delay of 1.5 seconds for interacting with anything. Now that is completely unacceptable in frontend or in UI whatsoever. A human needs a response time of roughly 100 milliseconds to feel as if something is instantaneously when it comes to click interactions and that sort of thing, right? So what do? Well, I start by just kind of looking through the state. And since the state is absolutely massive, it, as you can imagine, was quite a lot of stuff to go through. And then I kind of click around and I figure, well, all right, I'll not be able to figure out in any, there's too much stuff here. I won't be able to figure out where the problem lies because this is just a hunch. So I open my developer tools and I make a profile of basically just the interaction. I interact with the page and I profile it. And then I start burrowing down through the stack trace because I used Chrome Developer Tools, which has this very, very lovely feature which allows me to go through the method stack, basically just the calls, and look at a flame graph virtually of where my code is spending its time, where the execution is, kind of what methods and functions we're going through, right? And then I can burr through and find which function is the culprit, who is taking all this time. And I find that it's a clone deep function. The name of the function is clone deep. Now I don't know, but that doesn't sound all that Reacty to me. So I burr down and I find that we are actually, and this is one of those beautiful things. This is what I won't say anything because I don't actually know why this was. I tried to ask my coworkers. Nobody really knew why we did this. But basically, we have an alerting system that, for some reason, we decided to send our entire Redux state on every action. So every time somebody dispatches an action on the page, we make a network call, and then we make another one, and then we make a third one, and then we make the next one, and so on and so on. Now this has never been a problem so far, but now it is, because by going through the flame graph and looking at the memory allocation, I now see that, all right, there's this massive array, it looks like, with a lot of objects. What is it? And then I just kind of went through the state, and I found that we actually have a list of 11,000 elements. Now, I made a video not that long ago where I mentioned that pagination, guys, this is the sort of thing you use in order to kind of segment out really, really large arrays. But for speed, if you just want to just get something quickly up and like just be able to get on with your life, just loading everything in is fine. And this is the sort of thing, this is where I kind of tell you where this is the sort of thing that you make the right decision for the moment, and then it comes back and bites you in the ass later. The assumption from, like, I went to the page in question, so the assumption from the person who had implemented this previously was that the amount of elements in the list would never go over a certain threshold. That was completely false, because 11,000 elements is a lot different from the original, I think it was 100. So this was a boiling water, like a frog in boiling water, or like that sort of problem. This is the sort of thing that you don't understand that there's a problem, but the problem grows over time until you finally cook. This is exactly what happened. So this was not a huge deal or anything like that, but it made me kind of like, I had to fix it, or rather we fixed it. And what's interesting now is that had this been the issue that I'm explaining to you guys, like, had this been as a result of React not being able to re-render, because you may not know this, but when React re-renders, it's actually, and especially when you're using Redux, it's actually passing through your entire state. And I've been in situations before where this has caused a major performance issue on the page. And when you're in that situation, even if you use smart components and you try to be clever with your state, you may get to a point, depending on the size of the data set, where you simply can't do this anymore. And this is the sort of thing where, server-side rendered applications don't really have this sort of issue. This is something that's very beautiful about that, because you don't have to manually change, kind of maintain your state. You don't have to think about these things in the same way. But what's interesting about this, and the thing I want you to take away from this, is that the page that I was interacting with was not the culprit. It was one of the previous pages that I had visited that had loaded in everything into the Redux state and kept it there. Because as you use your application, as you use a React application, unless you clear the Redux state, you're just keeping everything in memory all the time. And that might not be a big problem for you, but it is a really big problem if you have a really, really large data set. So now luckily this was a quick fix, but we will most likely face a decision here where we will either have to clear the state, which means that if you want to go back and get this benefit of instantaneous load time, I mean the benefit of having an instantaneous experience is going to go away, because we are going to have to make a network request in order to load all that data back again. That's one approach. Another approach is to use pagination, which kind of, once again, nullifies the point, because you're still going to accumulate things in memory until such a time that you need to clear it. So that's the one thing that well, not the only thing, but that's one of the things that I really dislike about working in React, is that you always have this scare where if you don't manage your state correctly, you might find that your application actually hits severe performance issues. That's not something that you get with a server-side rendered solution. However, of course, you don't get the other benefits. So remember, guys, there is a lot of benefits to using an SPA framework, but you should be really mindful about managing your state correctly, and you should be really careful that your data set doesn't get out of hand, because if it gets too big, you will see a severe drop in performance on your application, and there's really not that much you can do about that depending on your situation. Have a great day.